for 45 to 47,000 people that were listening to Asmongold, this was the first time where they literally heard someone from start to finish describe there is no inferiority in cultures, that like these guys are too busy surviving. Ultimately, there is still a ton of people that hear that for the first time ever when they haven't ever heard about that, and their framework will change. So yesterday, 9 hours, it was crazy. Four hours of that was talking to Asmongold and trying to walk him off this like far right cliff that he had seemingly jumped off of, took a dive off of, in terms of his commentary on what is permissible bigotry about Arabs and their status, or Palestinians. But in any case, he got banned. I didn't realize he was banned. And regardless, that is not the main point. The point is that a ton of people were apparently upset with me. They were like, there was a guy that said I was basically like the equivalent of like a Nazi going to a Holocaust museum, like to whitewash their sentiment. Like that's what they were saying. I love hearing from white Americans about how to combat Islamophobia. As a Muslim guy, I like hearing, I like white Americans telling me what's what. You know, you don't know how to deal with Islamophobia, brother. Hasan, you just are not, you're ill-equipped, you know? Annoying leftists mad at you again, that's fine. That's like neither here nor there. That's not like a big constituency. Like, I love when a guy is out there trying to combat Islamophobia, and the retort against that sort of misinformation defense is basically just being like, hey, this Muslim guy is a terrorist. He loves throwing gays off roofs, baby. Just saying. It's like, that was literally the counter to this of like me talking about this. And I know it's one of those moments where FD Signifier says always, I texted him this morning, it's one of those moments where FD Signifier is like, remember, you're not white in the eyes of a lot of people, you know? And it's a somber reminder of that reality. There is a levels to the whiteness. Some of the commentary is pretty valid, coming from a Palestinian in the community. Watching two people debate whether or not I'm human should have a right to live is really my head. Yeah, except the thing is, he knows what my position is. That's not a criticism towards me. I speak to the humanity of Muslims and Arabs and Palestinians in general on a regular basis. A lot of people, I think, don't understand this. But like, yeah, when I'm talking to Asmongold, I'm not talking just to Asmongold. I'm talking to motherfuckers exactly like Asmongold. You know what I mean? And there's millions of them out there. I'm talking to his audience. Hey, watched your Asman video. Is there any reason why you didn't bring up how it was just being racist? I did multiple times directly to him. And then not only did I do that, but I also walked him through the steps of how it was. It takes a ton for him to reconsider his stances. It's not about him reconsidering his stances. It's not. It's about people in the margins that are in his audience that, you know, are not going to people in the margins that are in his audience that are going to look at the situation differently after that conversation. Bro, literally spouted white supremacist little he needs to get permit. He's not going to get permit. Also, you guys have to understand something. Maybe if you're not Muslim or Arab or Palestinian, you know, this might come as a surprise to you, but you can kind of get away with saying whatever the I'm shocked that he got banned to begin with. Like, you can kind of get away with, in mainstream media especially, with saying the most unhinged to not only Muslims, directly about Palestinians, directly about Arabs, but also beyond that, you can literally say unhinged to defenders of Arabs too. So like, it's legitimately not that surprising. What's surprising is that he got banned at all. I didn't even realize that he was banned, but I'm letting you know, dude. I'm letting you know. Like, what Asmongold said is not any different than Bill Maher, dog. What are you talking about? Bill Maher says it to a larger audience. The only difference between what Asmongold said and what Bill Maher says on a regular basis is that Bill Maher has 40 years of media training. So he knows not to say certain things so overtly, but the sentiment expressed is exactly the same. Okay. That's the only difference. Like, the language that Bill Maher uses is still like crafted around like liberal tent poles and liberal cultural signifiers enough that it can like masquerade as polite conversation. what he's saying is identical. Guys, Ta-Nehisi Coates is one of the most celebrated like liberal authors of all time. Okay, you're actually out of your mind on this one, mate. No, I'm not. I'm 100% correct on this. What? Bill Maher never said to kill the kids before they grow up. Bro, if you think Bill Maher, first of all, you're literally wrong. You're wrong. Bill Maher literally does say that every broadcast. That's my point. You're so stupid. He literally says exactly that. What are you talking about? Bro, have you not watched Bill Maher? Like, you gotta be joking. Oh, dude, that's awesome. Stop white-splaining this, mate. White-splaining this. This is the one issue where very clearly the overwhelming majority of white people do not track me as white, okay? What do you mean? Like, listen, I'm white. I say I'm white all the time, but not if you ask motherfuckers when people hear me talk about Muslims. Love you, man, but I question the efficacy of yesterday. He's a giant POS. That I get that there might be some people in the margins of his community, but if we're watching him through this arc, is very likely much on board already, and he just used you as a 3-hour attempt to rehab his image of truly incomprehensible he said and believes. Yeah, I don't see it that way at all. I don't think he rehabbed his image at all throughout that process. The way I view it is, and I will describe this one more time for many of you that simply fail to comprehend this. I rate everything on a curve. That's number one. Number two, I have this understanding, especially as someone whose name is Hasan, who is like a white dude, but still someone who grew up in Turkey, someone who is Muslim, from a Muslim background. I know that the average person is unimaginably Islamophobic. I've dealt with it for damn near a decade since I came to the United States of America. When I'm talking to a person individually and maintaining my composure and working through the steps, step by step, in explaining why someone is bigoted or someone's opinion is wrong or bigoted, offering historically relevant information, there's a reason for that. The reason is I might not change his mentality, okay? Other events might play a larger role in his mentality changing on this matter, but there are people who are watching him who are going to respond to that patience, especially respond to the way that I'm communicating, and most likely be more charitable to what I have to say, okay, on any number of different fronts, because that entire conversation is an information faucet for me, utilizing virtually every opportunity to talk about different aspects of how, for example, freedom of speech is revoked, things that a lot of people in his community might not be aware of. In 32 states right now in the United States of America, including the state that you're currently in, if you want to be a public school teacher, you have to sign a piece of paper, at least now. I don't know if you have any family members that are school teachers. You have to sign a piece of paper that says you will never participate in boycotting or demanding sanctions or demanding divestment from the state of Israel.
Holy kidding me?
Yes.
Oh my God. What a joke. I never heard that.
It's not like I agreed on his framing. It's not like I agreed to anything he was saying. That's my goal. My goal is to change people's minds. Do you understand? Even if his perspective might not change on the matter, there's plenty of people in his community that are going to look at the situation differently. And if I get 100 people, in Asmongold's community to look at the situation a little bit differently, learn something new that they hadn't known, that's it. That's my goal. I've succeeded. If there was any moment where I was like conceding to his framing on the matter, that would be an entirely different conversation. I'm not going to go in front of like a Ben Shapiro type, for example, who I would categorize as simply different than Asmongold as well. But even if I were to go in front of a Ben Shapiro type and have like a relatively cordial conversation, which I would not be able to maintain composure in a similar capacity to Ben Shapiro. He's a professional speaking head. He's a talking head. But here's the thing. There's never going to be a world where I concede to his framing on anything, just like I did not concede to Asmongold's framing on anything either. And that's how you get comments like this. This debate perfectly illustrates my own internal struggle when it comes to forming a kind and normal view of Middle Eastern people. I come from Poland, raised in a conservative family. I watch a lot of Asmon, and I love Hasan's commentary and the way he presents his arguments with solid factual backing. Listening to this for 3 hours and seeing the insane amount of patience and collection Hasan has had throughout, and also listening to Asmon repeat his point that I used to share over and over again. Actually, okay, well, we don't have the rest of the comment. There are a ton of people in this community that were most likely resilient. Couldn't it be said that his perspective gained more ground too? No, absolutely not. Because his perspective is already the most commonly held perspective in the United States of America. What more ground does his perspective need to get? Actually helped me finally see how weak, stupid, and sad such belief is. Thank you, Hasan, for doing what you do. My life has become healthier because of you. There you go. People forget that streamers like you and Asmon are talking to stadiums full of people every day. A lot of minds can be changed and it's not too late for them. Yes. There is never a person who I think is above having their mind changed. Okay. I think there's no one that is above having their mind and their heart changed. Now, of course, tactically speaking, there are certain people that I'm not going to be as charitable to. You know, a Ben Shapiro type, or a professional right-wing commentator, or someone in a position of actual power. You have to understand, my commentary is like water. Okay. And if you want to understand my method, basically my method is simple. I give back the same energy that I take. That's number one. Number two, I'm not going to concede to like shit that I don't agree with, no matter what. But more importantly, okay, I also am consistently, and this is something that like I think marginalized people who are professionals, marginalized people who are professional commentary people understand this. Like always, there's always something in the back of your mind. Like if you are a black political commentator, you know that every single thing that you say is going to be under a microscope by a broad audience of predominantly white people who do not have your understanding of the world, who have never empathized with your position. So if you get really angry, for example, that they're going to, even if you're completely correct, it does not matter. The facts in that situation, no matter how hard they are on your side, are irrelevant. Okay. This is just simply how debates and how commentary and how existing in America in some ways works. So I am cognizant always of not only the person that I'm talking to and the energy that they give me that I choose to match, but beyond that, I'm also always thinking about the audience and the way that they are responding to it. You made a video when I was in middle school that my mom showed me before we moved to Dearborn Heights, Michigan, because she wanted me to understand things after she left her racist husband. Jesus Christ, that's crazy. Islamophobia is baked into every orifice of American society. In the post 9/11 universe, the United States of America needed to do this to justify its endless, bloody war campaign as they ravaged the entirety of the MENA region. Okay. And Americans responded to that. So every American, especially over a certain age, chat, what are the laws for gays in Gaza? A gay man in Gaza, his life expectancy? Yeah, dude, anyone in Gaza, their life expectancy is pretty short. That's why, 50% of the entire Gaza Strip is under the age of 18. And that is not because of Hamas or because of Islamist fundamentalism. That's entirely because of Israel. But you can try to keep making a woman in Gaza her life expectancy. Yeah, I think you're making I suspect you're making an anti-Israel argument without recognizing that you're doing that. Yeah, the median age of people in Gaza is literally 15. Has there ever been a group of people in history that has deserved genocide? No, of course not. That's not how that works. Genocide is the number one crime. The Germans post World War II did not deserve genocide. You know what I mean? There is no moral genocide. There is no defensive genocide. A Reddit comment that shows you are right. To be honest, Hasan changed my opinion on it a little bit. Not the fundamental of what Asmon was saying, but my look at Palestine, hearing someone who heavily understands it and isn't some random Twitter user posting, hey, look at me, was pretty interesting. The fundamentals of what Asmon was saying isn't wrong. And I do mostly agree 100%, but Hasan was pointing out that you can't imply that here the country and its people aren't in a functioning state, be it because of Hamas, Israel, or outside forces. Hasan was pointing out that Palestine as a people and culture hasn't been able to be who they are for decades because they're consistently being bombed and killed. But in the past, when Palestinians were able to be themselves, this kill all non-believers, rape, kills for fun and concept never exists in their culture. So he wasn't sure why Asmon was assuming that they would. I know some will say, well, they're doing it now. And the point I think Hasan was making is that they is a handful of people and they're only doing it because there's no established ruling or government and do not represent the rest of the people. The majority of people aren't able to sort this out, stand up or call it out because the country is constantly being destabilized. I don't think going against the only group that's fighting against the constant destabilization is a smart thing to do. It's a die by Hamas or die by Israel situation, in my honest opinion. So the only thing most Palestinians minds is how they survive the day. That's awesome that this person who still has like resilient Islamophobic sentiment baked into his argument is like so close to fully recognizing the situation. You know what I mean? But that's it. That is the reason why I try to have these conversations. Okay. And this is being on Reddit. It makes it so crazy. I think that's where the overall problem lay, was that it felt like Asma was painting a broad brush across Palestine for the actions of a few crazies in other countries, where the majority have no voice or say and are only thinking about when they will be bombed, not who's gay, and we need to get them. So that's my point, and that's why I do what I do. So if you don't understand the method, it's cool, it's fine. And you can usually say this about any other kind of like marginalized identity that I seek to protect or talk about. You could be like, you're cis. You're a cishet. Man, you don't understand trans issues like that. Why are you arguing with transphobes in the way that you want to argue, that you think is the most successful method, and not in the way that I want you to argue? And you can say that because I'm a cis guy. I'm not trans. So you're right. And I mean, you're wrong ultimately, because I know what I'm doing and you don't. but I get it. But you can't really say that about Islamophobia. It's the one thing you can't really say that about me on. That's the one thing, right? So like, I'm the one getting bomb swabbed at TSA, baby. You can't. It was funny when white people try to overstep and do that, but it's fine. You do you. It's the same thing I say about any kind of group that I defend, that I talk about. It's not for you. If I'm talking about black issues with someone who's anti-black, that's not for black people, bro. That's not. It's for white people. There's a conversation for white people. Most of the conversations that I have when I am talking to an outside group is specifically targeted towards young white men. Okay. So if you sometimes feel like I'm out of pocket in the way that I'm communicating certain things, and it makes you feel a certain type of way, it makes you feel angry. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not for you. You already know where I stand. Trust me. Okay. Do you get what I mean? You're already black. You already know what being a black person in America looks like. You live it every day. You already have a certain amount of lived experience. Okay. You might be able to brush up on certain talking points and effective counters or whatever in terms of messaging when you watch a debate that I might have with someone who's anti-black, but you already have that lived experience. I'm talking to people who don't have that lived experience. I'm using my privilege specifically as an effective communicator that is that looks a certain way, that acts a certain way, that behaves a certain way to break through on a lot of people who would never listen to a black person because of their anti-black status from the start. The goal is to chip away at that, because bigotry is quite resilient, especially when it's consistently being propped up by social conditioning. Give it a break, Lamau. No, I'm not going to give it a break. This is like fundamentally something that I believe in, something that I care about, something that I think I'm quite successful at, as a matter of fact. And no, I'm not going to give this a break. Okay, but don't get upset if I check you. I forget this isn't for me. I wish more people were progressive on blackness. It's just us defending ourselves. I mean, good luck. It's impossible. His entire society is designed in an incredibly anti-black fashion. It's just like my job, where I see myself is someone who is a communicator of these sorts of issues to people who would not be responsive in any other circumstance. Like, someone who's anti-trans is not, especially in a debate format, is not going to be responsive to a trans person. That's the unfortunate reality, right? So my goal is to penetrate that barrier as being a bro, cishet, white dude. You feel me? As opposed to like in the real world, the number one thing that you can do as a trans person to combat transphobia is just like be a normal, chill trans person existing in the real world and hanging out with your coworkers. Like, I'm sure every single trans person in this chat who actually does that on a daily basis will tell you that is the number one way of just like destroying transphobia. Yo, I just remembered, I didn't realize the reach Ta-Nehisi Coates had until a very liberal coworker who's pro-Israel messaged me to tell me he wishes more people could see what's actually happening and get rid of their bias because his new book changed his mind. Yes, dude. Ta-Nehisi is the whisperer, dude. He is the liberal whisperer. That's why when I saw him pop off, I was like, oh my God, this is like genuinely this is a genuine sea change that is coming. He is considered GOAT status among liberals. Like, this is like Lin-Manuel Miranda could not hold a candle to Ta-Nehisi Coates. That is Obama's favorite writer, okay? Are you kidding me? And not only that, but he is a real one, for the record. I will stand on this. If you listen to him talk, that's a real one. He recognizes that there are definitely like certain things that he doesn't fully comprehend yet, but his heart is absolutely in the right way. His mind is totally set on the issue. I listened to him talk to Ezra Klein about this, and there were a couple moments that I was looking for. Because like my expectation, if you're a Westerner, if you're an American, especially a prominent liberal like Ta-Nehisi is, there are a couple things that they can always get you on. And he did not even concede. Wait, hold on. I actually wrote this to one of his friends. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I got to read it. Because when I was listening to it, I was like, damn, this was a great point that he like did not even back away from. I don't know. I don't remember. There was a couple points where he just like, he caught. Ezra is like a pretty open-minded guy. Oh, I forgot to run the ad break, by the way. Ezra is a pretty open-minded guy, and I kind of like him. Yeah. Oh, when Ezra said Hamas apologists, yes, that is right-wing framing baked into the conversation. Far-right Israelis, Hamas apologists. And he caught that. Ta-Nehisi caught that shit and was like, I'm going to push back on this. Why did you say Hamas apologists, but you said far-right Israelis? And by the way, Ezra is my problematic fave. I don't really care. I don't know why I've like developed such a liking to him. I guess like it's just, it is what it is. Like listening to his podcasts have like, he annoys me at times, but I do still have this appreciation for him because I think he does a decent job of like presenting himself as a charitable guy who is willing to have his mind changed. Like he doesn't give me like annoying, grimy grifter. Ezra Klein at the New York Times, he's the creator of Vox, and then and now he has a podcast on New York Times. He's not a smarmy lib. More than can be said for most libs, to be honest. Yeah. Be honest, there's no shot you actually think he cares that much about gay people in the Middle East as he claimed to yesterday. What? No. What are you talking about? What are you, stupid? No, of course not. What?
Conversation between Hasanabi and Asmongold right now. I'm about an hour into it, and if you're unfamiliar with that conversation, basically Asmongold is coming under fire for saying that Palestinian culture is an inferior culture to that of Western culture because of its roots in Islam, making it more prone to homophobia, transphobia, and more extremist conservative views. And I find Hasan's response to that to be very interesting, and I'm going to put this into my own terms, the meaning that I understand and take away from it. Namely, Hasan seems to be saying that there is no such thing as one culture which is inferior to another culture so much as it is one culture which is more or less mature than another culture. And maturity can be hampered or stunted by a lack of material circumstance, and or from the restriction or taking away of material circumstance, a culture might regress, which we might be experiencing here in the United States, unfortunately, at the moment. Now, that's not to say that as cultures mature that they all homogenize into one identical culture. Not at all. Much like individuals, each person develops and matures into their own self. And Hasan goes on to argue that all cultures should be supported insofar as making sure that their material needs are met so that they have enough autonomy so that the liberation movements that are necessary for them to mature can occur. But right now, especially in Palestine, they are constantly under attack. They are in survival mode, and when they are in survival mode, there cannot be the necessary steps towards liberation for marginalized people groups. So the first step is to get to a place of stability, get to a place of general liberation from an oppressive regime. And then
that's a good summary.
From there, we should start to hopefully see like cultural maturity. Now, another point that Hasan argues that I would be remiss not to mention is the fact that historically the idea of one culture being inferior to another culture, like inherently in such a way that it cannot necessarily change to become, more mature in those terms, but it's this more static thing of being inferior, that has historically been used as an excuse to commit atrocities against people groups, whether it's been indigenous people or black people. So we need to be very...
Because the debate was stupid, he only had one argument. It doesn't matter because on my just listen to my words, man. For 45 to 47,000 people that were listening to Asmongold, this was the first time where they literally heard someone from start to finish describe that there is no inferiority in cultures, that like these guys are too busy surviving to actually turn around and be like, oh, let's do a gay pride parade. You know what I mean? All of this stuff is basically just repackaged historical materialism. All of this stuff is basically explaining American foreign policy and how devastating that has been for entire regions, showcasing like that these places, when they had a crumb of autonomy, were able to actually, have a more, I guess, Western focused, like liberally palatable existence. That all went away when fundamentalists came in to the fold as like the number one emancipators and liberators away from the influence of the treacherous parasitic Western imperialist forces. Like all of this stuff is obviously important for these people to hear. Okay, it doesn't matter what Asmongold's argument is. Like even if a lot of people are going in there to be like, oh, Asmongold is cooking, he's going to destroy this guy. Like ultimately, there is still a ton of people that hear that for the first time ever when they haven't ever heard about that, and their framework will change.
Very careful in the language that we use when speaking about other cultures, especially cultures that have yet to mature and are under intense oppression. Now, Hasan's take on culture was something I had actually never heard before, and up till hearing it, I actually wasn't entirely sure how I felt about the whole cultural situation. I had heard somebody bring it up to me before, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. I like Hasan's take on this. I'm curious what other people think.
I feel like Hasan's take is basic sociology. There are probably a lot of YouTube vids on the topic that can help you explore further. Maybe trying to find a vid on Maslow's hierarchy. Wonder why they don't teach historical materialism in school. Sounds pretty cool. It's not culture that causes homophobia or whatever. By this logic, I'm a dirty Indian because I'm from an immature culture, not due to material conditions of the subcontinent. Culture is completely separate from social conservatism and social liberalism. Culture is stuff like food, language, dress, literature, and their history. Exactly. No, absolutely. That's precisely what it is. There is no like this culture is better than others or whatever. Culture is just the sum total products that the output that you create as you respond to your material conditions. To be a theory nerd and add on, the political sociologist Charles Tilly, whose most famous theories covered exactly this phenomenon, in that European society's linear timeline of cultural and capitalist progression cannot be applied to countries that have been colonized, specifically the global south, because they have not been afforded the same opportunity for linear progression. But even more, there's also the fact that the global south has been rejected from equity overall. There's also another side of this, which is why I like find at least like attempts towards socialization, higher degrees of socialization, to be truly unique in terms of development for even other countries that have like historically been undermined due to a number of different reasons, but specifically China. When you look at Chinese development, it's like insane to consider that they went from humiliation, ritualistic humiliation, and the grips of colonial violence to becoming a superpower that is competitive in the global marketplace with the United States of America damn near overnight. When you look at even the USSR going from a rugged terrain full of potato farmers that were constantly in the grips of famine, and there was still plenty of famine in the USSR as well. Okay, before you blast me for that, going from that to being another superpower that like beat the United States of America to the space race is crazy. I mean, that is, in my opinion, in my estimation, these are massive leaps. These are massive projects that even at a time when like technological prowess had not caught up, simply the ideological resilience and an interest in doing something different caused so much of this collectivization to occur in such a short period of time without 400 years of chattel slavery and colonial exploit. And a lot of people cannot look at that on an even playing field. One, because they are just simply ill-equipped to understand any of that from a materialist perspective. They just don't, like, there's no way to comprehend it. Like, there's no way to look at the situation with a broader snapshot and try to, I mean, in Russia they had plenty of history of colonial exploit, as did China, just in the way that the West did. Yes, but their overall standing from their starting point of this project to its peak is insane. It's not like there was any sort of like genuine liberalization initiative or any sort of like, I mean, you had serfdoms. You did not have the bounties of empire to the same degree, in my opinion, that the Western world did, specifically with chattel slavery. Culture is not simply a response to material conditions, as there are a ton of other cultural forces such as kinship and adaptations to local ecosystems. What adaptations to local ecosystems would still be material? Anthropologists would see your view as reductionist and too deterministic. PhD here, by the way. You just said it's not materialistic and then described like materialism. PhD, by the way. But anyway, it's fine. It's fine. There is a spiritual sure. I'm willing to concede on this point. Okay. I'm not an anthropologist. I am far from the most knowledgeable person. I'm just a dumbass. Okay. From what I understood, his original statement implied that because there are aspects worth criticizing in Palestinian culture, as with any, it allows him to have complete apathy when Israel bombs that society in extinction. I don't know if it was intentional, but it seemed like you passively guided the conversation to a place where you both agreed this notion is ridiculous, and I thought that was nice. Yes. Thank you. That is what I was doing. Especially when I think like one of the major points of contention in that conversation, one of the high notes, was basically when I asked him if he would feel the same way about, like, you know, firebombing a white Alabama enclave that hosts some of the most far-right radical Christians. And obviously he was like, no, I treat American citizens differently. And there's also the factor to consider that the presence of most bigotry stems directly from the cultural imports of the global north to the global south. Colonialization didn't just stunt cultural development, but also regressed it in some factors because colonies were punished for engaging in their indigenous culture, which in many cases was more progressive than their colonizers. Yeah. I think one of the most resilient points there is always when I talk about how religion can be a tool for good, it can be a tool for bad. Historically, it has been used for both the justification of chattel slavery and also been used in the abolition of chattel slavery. And ultimately, you don't have an issue with religion. You have an issue with fundamentalists. You have an issue with right-wing conservatism. That's what it is. And I think that's a good thing to separate for a lot of people, because a lot of right-wing conservatives in the United States of America hate other right-wing conservatives that are brown for doing the same shit that they're advocating for here, but more responsive to what is permissible in American society. Obviously, the Westboro Baptist Church can't run around, roam the streets with AR-15s and like throw gay people off the roofs, but they would if they were living in an ISIS-dominated territory of Syria. Okay, they would 100% be doing that shit. Here, they just get their rocks off by calling a gay person that died the F slur at the funeral and then going and eating jalapeno poppers at Applebee's. Like, that's how you also stunt radicalization to a certain degree, by offering people, some material benefits. This does not mean that like American culture is more prosperous or better than others. It simply means that America has the bounties of empire, and therefore our right-wing nutters here are stunted to a certain degree in comparison to the right-wing nutters everywhere else. Why do you think he said he would be sad to see Germans bombed if he was a Jew in 1940s German concentration camp? It seems like, yeah, that was a ridiculous point. I don't think he fully, I think he was just trying to move past that point at that point. One simple argument I use when I get asked by my Western friends about the slow progress of LGBTQ in our culture from North Africa is that we are too poor, too unstable, too uncertain about putting food on the table to discuss such things. People have to realize that something as basic as food is somewhat scarce in countries where MENA, let alone proper education. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because like, it's not like Americans are super woke. You got the body of a mechanic now. What, a mechanic of what? A sex mechanic? MHUD made a good show. MHUD made a good short video. MHUD made a good short video showcasing American culture. Cause these are my people, and this is my land. Anyway, I hope that people understand. I hope that people understand where I was coming from, what I was doing. I think it was ultimately successful. Also, the only ban that hit the Twitch towers wasn't necessarily Asmongold, who apparently got a 14-dayer for the statements that he made. But DJ Academics has been banned on Twitch after streaming with Aiden Ross, who is currently banned on the platform. Damn, not friend of the show, Ock. Yeah.